you say a variety of things about like conservatives in general, like that they're what is it? They're no different from the KK. Conservatives today are no different from the KKK in the who were, I think the quote was frothing at the mouth, um, keeping black people away from integrated schools. You said that, and now it seems like you are not standing by those beliefs and taking it back and hiding your power level a bit.
No, I still stand with whatever it was I said back there. I don't think there's much of an ideological difference between a modern American conservative and a member of the Ku Klux Klan. It's just a continuation of existing ideals. You know, it's not exactly a conspiracy that there was like this huge wave of Ku Klux Klan support that was kind of backed by conservative politicians at the time. Those politicians lasted a long time too, and a lot of their ideological forebears, right up until the Civil Rights Movement, you know, they were pretty open and friendly with a lot of really obviously anti-black stuff. And then Civil Rights Movement happens, the act gets passed, and can't say the N-word anymore. But a lot of the same people stayed in office, and a lot of their children and friends ran and won in their offices later, and it makes you wonder just how much stuff they kept bottled up. At any rate, the ideology is still remarkably similar.
So
Xenophobia and
my
nativism are the big driving forces of modern conservatism, and I think
mhm.
Jordan Peterson plays into that quite a lot as well, largely with
So
the cultural Marxism bit.
okay, the reason I'm not being as warm and welcoming as I could otherwise be is what you said. The implication of what you said is that, for example, my conservative friends and family members are no different than the Ku Klux Klan. Do you understand why that limits the degree to which I can take a lot of the other things you say seriously, and why many people in general don't take as much as you say seriously as they might otherwise?
Well, I'm not trying to hide in audacity. I think it's a fairly straightforward assessment of where modern American conservatism is. I mean, do you think that families of the Ku Klux Klan back 120 years ago didn't talk with each other as normal people? Everybody thinks they're normal, right? But obviously, with
But it's just
retrospect,
us with conservative friends and family members who are literally as bad as the Ku Klux Klan today. That's what you're saying. The
what
Ku
do you
Klux
think?
Klan who burned down the homes of black people with black children in them
Mhm.
and hung them. You're saying my friends and family members, people watching this who have friends and family members who are conservative, they're just as bad. That's what you're saying.
Well, nowadays, you would instead cheer on a racist policing system that's used to disproportionately inflict violence against black people. So you've sort of delegated the violence to a system, a very expensive one at that. Sheesh, at least the, you know, taxes didn't pay for the KKK. But fundamentally, I think that the parallels remain there. They're not the same in terms of like the exact
Okay.
extent of the harm they commit interpersonally. Obviously, I'm talking about ideological synchronicity. But yeah, no,
Sure.
I mean, the modern American conservative, right, this is a template of fascism. If I believe, for example, that Ron DeSantis and Trump are both fascists, which I do, and the GOP is a fascist org, why would I not believe then that conservatives in America today are themselves, I mean, at least fascist sympathizers, right? Like, you know, not individually every single one of them is like an ideological fascist, but they're at the very
Mhm.
least, they're part of the movement. It's not meant as an
Okay.
insult. Obviously, I disagree with it, but I think
It's
it's
not meant
important
as
to
an
recognize it.
insult. Hey, you and your friends and family who might have voted for Trump, they're as bad as the KKK. You don't understand why people would take that as an insult?
Ideologically descendant of the KKK. You can take it as an
Oh.
insult, but I think
Oh, I see.
we
That's
have to
much
reach that
better.
middle ground before we can have any
You're
reasonable
not a Ku
discussion on
Klux
fascism.
Klan member who hates black people. You're just an ideological descendant of a Ku Klux Klan member who hates black people. I think that is a condescending defense of an indefensible position.
Well, it's not meant. I'm not meant to be Weasley when I say that. I just genuinely think that is the case, right? I mean, like we would have to acknowledge, for example, that
S- s-
the
s-
conservative parties in modern day Germany would have had ideological roots in Nazis, right?
hold
The
on.
conservative party, the current leader of Italy, for example, literally like a direct lineage of the supporters of Mussolini. So I think it would be fair then to say the people who voted for her would be ideologically in line with
Yes,
that, right?
I understand the formula of the argument you're making. You
Right.
said you genuinely believe in what you're saying. So you're saying, do you have any friends? Do you hang out with anyone who is a fascist or excuse me, a conservative, although it's the same word? Do you have any friends who are, yeah, I'll leave it open because,
There are a couple of online people I talk to friendly who are,
okay.
I would consider such, yes.
Okay. So if you believe that conservatives are literally Ku Klux Klan members, excuse me, literally ideological descendants, we'll keep it tight. Why are you hanging out with them?
Well, I don't think
What
there's
does that
anything.
say about you and your character?
I mean, some people might disagree. There are people on the left who get mad at me, by the way. They got mad at me for being friends with Shu, still do. They're mad at me for all sorts of things. But their opinions aren't really what matters here, right? I don't think it morally compromises me to have a friendly conversation with a person of any ideological disposition. I've never been the kind of person who thought that every interaction you have with somebody you disagree with has to be like a shouting match or anything. But I feel like this is genuinely not directed as an insult, okay? So whatever
I
you
don't
may
believe
think,
that.
okay, here, out of curiosity, what do you think of communism? Of the ideology, what do you think? Of its lineage, of its effect?
There are some things I like better than communism.
Some things.
Yeah, like ice cream.
Okay, gotcha. But you would probably put it below the 50-50 par, right?
Probably. That's a fair statement.
So whatever associations you may have with communism, you could fairly draw that line to me for my ideology and its precedent, you know? Whatever use you'd think you would get out of this discussion for it, you know, if we were talking about something like that specifically. But my goal here is not, oh, haha, now that I have denounced you as the fascist, we can move on, we can leave, you are bad now. My goal is, you know, these are the ideological roots of where you're coming from. This is like the ground.
So what is your goal? Is your goal, I'm just a genuine question. And let me just say, I have a lot of thoughts based on the last 15, 20 minutes of our conversation. I have said specifically that I do not think that you are a uniquely bad person, or you're not capable of any unique level of harm that anyone else is, right? You've had cameras on, you have a huge audience. So naturally the impact of everything you say is gonna be worse, but there's nothing unique per se about you. In fact, that's central to Jordan Peterson's whole body of work, is that each of us have the capacity to be a Nazi camp guard. And had we been in Weimar Germany, it's likely that most of us would. And so you have to understand that capacity for harm. And so I'm actually, the reason I sympathize with what you just said about, you know, just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you need to have a screaming match with them or whatnot. You can still be friends with them. And I'm to the degree that I'm able, I'm trying to engage with you honestly for the same reason. But I guess it confuses me, because if you are genuinely interested in, let's say, combating fascism, then it seems like you would recognize that calling people's friends and family KKK members, or equivalent to the KKK, equivalent to people who lynched black people, that would impede your goal of trying to get to a common understanding. Is that not reasonable? Is that not a reasonable critique that one could levy against you?
Well, the problem is, I think the opposite has actually been the case. The aversion to calling, a spade has actually been a huge detriment to American politics. We've basically been seeing like the resurgence of a modern American fascist movement being built up like brick by brick. And this entire time we've been thinking, you know, oh, it's hyperbolic to call it this. It's over the top. You know, you're God-lawing the entire conversation. It's worthless. You're being silly. You're ostracizing people. And right now, Ron DeSantis is threatening felony charges for teachers who have degenerate material in their books, by which any mention of sexuality or gender, providing government-backed white lists for stuff they're allowed to show. And it's like, oh, that's literally just like a Nazi policy, like explicitly, straightforwardly, like you will be held to account if you spread degeneracy to the school children.